now introduce my next speaker, which is Storey. She is from the Green Party. She is an organic farmer, and she's also the Green Party agricultural critic, and she's running as an MP, and she certainly has my vote.
Thanks, Rose, and thank all of you for coming out and showing that you care. It's people like you that make a difference. We're marching against Monsanto today because we care about food. We're marching against Monsanto because it's forcing us to eat genetically engineered food. We don't want GMO, and we don't want pesticides in our food. We want to get Monsanto out of our food. GMO, get Monsanto out. There is no reason to have genetically modified food. GMOs do not produce more. GMOs do not have any trait we actually need. Genetic engineering exists only so that one company, called Monsanto, can change food enough to put a patent on it. Those patents give Monsanto a very big share of industrial farming. Monsanto has a 90% monopoly on genetically engineered patents. It makes glyphosate, which is the world's most used and most abused farm chemical. The United Nations recently released a report called Agroecology and the Right to Food. That report says that the industrial agriculture, with its pesticides and its genetic engineering, is actually the cause of world hunger. That UN report concludes that, and I quote, "Not only would industrial food production not be able to feed the world in the long term, but the practices being employed are actually increasing hunger, exhausting resources, and exacerbating climate change." That's not what Monsanto wants you to believe. Monsanto propaganda gives the illusion that genetic engineering feeds the world. Science tells us that that claim is false. 30 years ago, farmers started using fertilizers, and they started learning new techniques, and the crop yield started to rise. Genetic engineering was introduced at that same time, but the genetic engineering has nothing to do with those increasing yields. All crops, including non-GMO and organic, had that same boost in yield. It's the farming technique and not the engineered trait which creates the yield increase. GMOs cannot feed the world. We do not need engineered seed. Genetic engineering can never feed the world because GMO crops have a fatal flaw. Engineered crops cannot withstand pests and disease. The engineering forces the plant to take energy away from growing and put that energy into a novel trait. This means that the farmer has to apply more chemicals because the plant is too weak to grow on its own, and it's too dependent on chemicals. I've not even mentioned what those chemicals do to our kids and to our water. Most genetically engineered crops are linked to that chemical glyphosate. GMO farms spray the soil with glyphosate in the spring. They spray insecticides to kill the bugs and fungicides to kill the disease. They keep spraying glyphosate again and again right at harvest. And then we're supposed to eat all that? It's time to get Monsanto out of our food. There is nothing that genetic engineering can do that regular crops can't do just as well or better. GMO is simply a business plan to get farmers addicted to chemicals. And like any addict, some will fight very hard to keep up that addiction. You have to admit that from Monsanto's point of view, genetic engineering is a perfect business plan. First, they use propaganda to hook farmers. Then they patent the seed and charge royalties. Then they monopolize the market, making sure that farmers have to choose GMO seed. And that monopoly allows them to sell that seed at an increasing cost. Seed used to cost $6 a bag. Now it's $600 $12 a bag. Then
Crime.
they sell all those chemicals to keep that crop alive. The soil is damaged, requiring even more chemical, and that profit cycle continues. But a lot of my farmer friends are starting to get worried about all that chemical and all that cost, but they're trapped in the cycle. Farmers can enter in genetic engineering anytime they like, but they can never leave. It doesn't have to be this way. There are non-GMO seeds which grow very well. An organic field can yield a lot without GMO, without any chemical at all. We don't need genetic engineering. GMO, get Monsanto out.
Get them out! Get them out!
We're marching against Monsanto today, but this march is only one day. Monsanto propaganda works every day. They spend billions of dollars on propaganda to convince farmers to fall into that GMO trap. I'll tell you about that propaganda. Every morning, my radio alarm clock goes on, and I wake up to the sound of a pesticide commercial. It tells me that if I want to be a good farmer, I have to spray my fields. Then I open up the farm paper, and it's filled with big, glossy advertisements with words like kill, and pictures of pretty girls with machine guns aimed at a plant. I read the articles, and it tells me that if I'm any kind of a farmer at all, I have to buy their chemical and spray it on my crop. It's embarrassing, really. Those ads are like a drug dealer pushing chemical on an addict. Then there are the articles telling me that we farmers have to use those chemicals so we can feed the world. Apparently, I'm a bad farmer because I don't use those chemicals or the engineered seed.
Thank you!
Science and common sense tell us we don't need the chemicals or the engineered seeds. But many farmers don't hear the science. That propaganda is all they hear, every day, all day. GMO proponents like to tell us about all those wonderful new traits that genetic engineering could give us. This is also misleading. Engineering changes one gene at a time. This gives us boutique traits, which are very pretty, but they come with a chemical addiction. We don't need a non-browning apple when it comes coated in chemicals. We don't need golden rice when it comes in chemical. That golden rice is actually a good example. The poor people of India used to grow vegetables and to eat with their rice. Industry forced the people off their farms, and now they have no vegetables. Monsanto gave them golden rice to hide the fact that industry stole their land. Golden rice is nothing but a cover-up. We do not need genetic engineering. GMOs, get Monsanto out!
Get Monsanto out!
What we need is for governments to smarten up and stop giving taxpayer money to Monsanto. What we need is for our public money to go into public research, into natural crops, which do not need chemicals. What we need is to get our food off of engineering and off of the chemical addiction. If the billions of dollars that went into GMO research had instead gone into organic research, we would have a better world today.
Hear, hear!
We're marching against Monsanto today. We're marching against food monopolies. We're marching against pesticides and against glyphosate. We're marching against propaganda. We're marching against genetic engineering. And we're marching to get Monsanto out of our food. We're marching against Monsanto today. But what happens tomorrow? You, here today, you can make a difference. You can make a difference today. You can make a difference tomorrow and every day. You can fight Monsanto with your food dollars. You can get Monsanto out of your food at the grocery store. Buy local, buy organic, demand pesticide-free food. You are the answer. GMO, get Monsanto out.
Get Monsanto out! Woo! Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate Storey.